It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello and welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host for the day, Lyndsey Smith, and yes, it is Thursday, February 27th. It is time for the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Corteva Crop Protection. I am super thrilled to have just a fantastic lineup. We're going to go to Nova Scotia, stop in Ontario, head to Manitoba, and then we're going to talk to Rhett Duke in Saskatchewan with Corteva. We're going to talk about seed treatments, incredibly important to protect those cereal acres with whatever you've got in the toolbox, because let's face it, you're setting up for the season when you decide on what's going to happen with that seed. As always, if you've got feedback on today's show, give us a call, 1-855-776-6147, or you can zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com. We'd love to know if you've got a neighbor you want to nominate to be on the Farmer Rapid Fire. You just give us a call and we will get that done for you. Or at least, anyway, we'll try our best to convince them. But let us know. We'd love that. Okay. So our first stop, as I said, we're going to head to Nova Scotia. Really excited to hear from all the farmers today. And my question will be, of course, what they're looking forward to most in March. Because frankly, I am just so ready for it. And if you'd like to share, you can find me on social media at RealLoudLyndsey. Let me know as well what you're looking forward to. Without further ado, though, let's head to our first stop of the day. We're going to talk to Ryan in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. All right, we head now to Antigonish, Nova Scotia, and talk to Ryan McCarron. Ryan, did I get it even close to right?
Yeah, you did, actually. Pretty good. McCarron, it's pretty all right.
McCarron, all right. I keep, every time I practice a little more, I get a little closer. Yeah.
Yep.
And, okay, so here we are, end of February. How's it looking? How long till spring? I would like you to tell me it soon.
Oh, I don't know. In our part of Nova Scotia, we can still get, 30 centimeters of snow right up till April 30th, sometimes into May. So I'm enjoying the warm weather we're getting now, but I'm not going to make any predictions.
Darn it. Okay, what is keeping you busy then? As we hope, anyway, the last bits of winter here. Hang on.
Oh, well, just kind of the basics. We're doing a little bit of maintenance on certain pieces of gear that we kind of identified last fall. And then we have a few calves. We don't really calve right now, but we have a few calves coming that we always have, maybe like 10 or 15 early, so nothing too pressure-wise there. And then we kind of plan this year to be a more quiet time of the year, just kind of attend some meetings or get ready for like what we're going to be planting, or we kind of already know all that, but just kind of, finalize some of the details.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of try to enjoy the little bit of slow time that's kind of coming this year.
Yeah, it is. I would agree that it's nice to have a lull. Of course, there's always stuff to do, but it's nice to sort of enjoy those lulls a little bit. A few calves now. When do you typically calve? When will be the sort of the busiest time for calving?
May.
Yeah.
Like usually May into June. Same time we're planting and getting ready to do hay and
of course
and all the other stuff. I'd like to calve now, but we're just like our barns set up like they used to be dairy barns, so we don't have enough space for the amount of cows we have to calve. So we just work with what we got, and in that time of the year, and like unless you get really bad weather, and if you have bad weather, you can't really be on the field planting. So, like, it kind of always works out. If you have good weather, it's usually, the calves usually don't have a problem because it's warm, it's spring, they're on grass, so everything's generally clean. And so it always kind of works out. If you get bad weather, well, you're in a bad mood because you can't plant, and then you usually have lots of time to treat calves. So it kind of balances itself out.
Good risk management, Ryan. That's what that is. It's good risk management. No, I hear you, though. Sometimes it would be nice to be able to separate some of these, the time of year for some of these things, but you got to deal with what infrastructure you have. Can't always build brand new.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does the planting lineup look like then? Anything new in the lineup? Any big switches?
No, nothing really. Just kind of, we plant a lot of corn and a lot of barley, and then we'll always have some fields that we're kind of renovating back into like an alfalfa grass mixture for our forage land. And yeah, we kind of just go with those main crops, usually like a corn to barley to back into alfalfa. Mm-hmm. And that's nothing really changed really too much. We're kind of at a spot right now. We're not going through we're trying to expand, but we're kind of in between one of the phases. So everything's kind of just out of balance right now. So yeah, nothing really too exciting.
Yeah.
Don't think it's going to be too exciting today.
No, that's okay. We're allowed to have chill times of year and days. When you establish, so when you go back into your alfalfa, are you a nurse crop believer or no nurse crop?
No, we always generally, sometimes I'd try to push a grain crop on it and actually take that off. And I've always generally had pretty good luck with our soil types here. They're kind of heavier soils. And even if we get some rains through the season, so I would generally take a crop of grain off and then always had good luck. But we always generally put a nurse crop with it, whether we're going to put it like an oats in it and take it for green feed. Mm-hmm. It kind of just depends on how much grass I have or how much of the balance is if I have to do a whole lot of fields that I'm going to renovate and I'm going to need some extra green feed, then I'll plant something oats down with it and plan to take it early, mow it off for a silage. Or if not, I'll just put barley and underseed it and then just take the crop of barley off. Mm-hmm. And then I usually have a good catch of grass underneath it.
Mm-hmm. Do you
field dependent too?
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah.
I'm not going to do it on a real sandy piece of ground. I'd probably just take that off because that's kind of a little bit riskier, but it kind of just depends.
Yeah. Your barley, are you feeding that through the cows, or do you sell it as well, or what do you do with your barley?
No, we feed all that to our cows. We direct market a lot of our beef, pretty much all of it, and that's kind of gone pretty crazy. So all the barley we keep and we feed, and we use the straw for our own bedding. So that's kind of main reason why we grow barley. And our corn will probably getting into that mixture too. We normally right now sell a lot of our grain corn as a cash crop. But if next couple of years, if we grow and expand, those acres will be going into something that's going to be feeding more of the stock that we have on farm, which is kind of our goal. We want it all to be going into the livestock that we have on farm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you direct market everything, right? For the most part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we weren't planning on that. It's just kind of one of these things, and the market just seems to, it's more than we can even handle right now. So it's a good problem to have. But, it was just kind of a niche thing that we started, and then it's just kind of taken on a whole life of its own. So
mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So, we've done some direct marketing ourselves, and one of the keys, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on, when you've got that much demand, obviously you don't like to tell people no, but at the same time, you got to measure it against what you actually will have. How hard is it to sort of time making sure you got enough animals ready when you need them and all that? Is that a challenge?
No, we kind of know, right now, we kind of grew organically, small. So, at the start, we might only be processing a couple animals a month. Now we know we're processing, at least 2 a week. Depending on if we're doing a delivery run to one of the local cities, we might bump that up to, 4 or 5, depending on how many, bulk orders we have, a side or a quarter. But then, for our local market near our local town, we know consistently kind of what our customer base is always, that we kind of know roughly how much we need to have on hand in our freezers so that we can meet that demand. And it's just one of those things where we kind of always know it's always kind of growing. So we know that maybe by this time next year, that number might have to be 4 a week for our local market, and then 8 when we're going to the city. But it's one of those things. The biggest challenge we're having is just balancing kill space mm-hmm. for our local abattoir to make sure that we can get in and get enough that he can manage to cut for us and process the animals. That's starting to become one of our choke points now, where we just need to have more processing space so we can get our stuff back in a timely manner. As far as bulk orders, if someone wants a whole side or a whole beef, they're willing to wait within a certain amount of time, not too long, but so we try to organize that around people and try to give them heads up. If you're booking towards December, you're going to run into Christmas time. There's going to be longer wait times. Versus now, if you order now or early in September, we can kind of accommodate you better.
Yeah.
But it's one of those other things. Logistics. It's all learning curves.
Yeah,
but it's fun. I like that. I like it though.
Yeah, you like a challenge. Well, and so interesting though that as you've grown, that the abattoir becomes the pinch point possibly. So what kind of conversations then do you have as far as, a heads up? Are you working together to try and navigate some of that?
Oh yeah, he's really good. Our local guy, we've been going to him since he opened up his abattoir, and he does the whole from killing, provincially inspected right to packaging, and so we can give him enough of a heads up. He doesn't want to short himself customers, and it's just more of a dialogue. We just try to keep him in the loop as much as we are. Whenever we get backed up with stuff or how much stuff we need to, if the more advanced notice we can give him, then if he's able to plan how he books other guys, that might just be, they only might have one or two steers. He doesn't want to put those guys away, but he wants to make sure that he kind of can cover us and not overbook or underbook. So we try to keep him in the loop as much as we can, a couple weeks out, what we think we're going to need, and then he's usually always pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Communication matters. All right. Yeah. So what are you looking forward to in March?
Oh, I'm looking forward to warm weather, just a little bit better than it's been. We've been lucky. We didn't get that many big snowstorms this year compared to this time last year. I think we had that massive blizzard, so that's been very nice. And I'm just looking, maybe we'll start pulling more gear out, getting closer to spring and making sure everything's kind of good to go, and then start prepping cows, making sure they're good to go, and then just trying to get everything ready awesome. To go for when the weather does break. So it's a good time of year. You're starting to feel a little bit more energized. The days get longer, so it's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I too, I am ready for just a little warm up. Doesn't need to be spring just yet, but just give me some sunshine, longer days.
Yes.
It's all
I don't
good.
Want too much. Yeah, I don't want too much sunshine. I don't want to get into it yet. I'm not looking forward to getting right back into the fields and putting 18-hour days in.
Yeah.
But, just a little bit nice. You can kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Ryan, thanks so much for joining me on the Farmer Rapid Fire. All right, we will be back with more RealAg Radio and the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Corteva Crop Protection right after this.
It's now time for a product spotlight, joined by the senior agronomist with Tkachyk Agronomic Services, Bryce Geisel. Bryce, a lot of growers, they're concerned about where the profit margins are. How can we maximize the ROI of the nitrogen investment they're making on their farms?
A big return on that investment is to keep more of that nitrogen applied in the field, being available for your crops. So unless you're putting that nitrogen 3 inches down where it will be well protected, nitrogen stabilizer might be a fit to help reduce those nitrogen losses, kind of that leaching, denitrification, volatilization losses. I think one of the big things too is making sure that you're using the right kind of stabilizer for your application. There's going to be needs that you should be just utilizing a urease inhibitor like Anvil, other applications where you're using just a nitrification inhibitor like Centuro, and there's going to be other times where you're going to need both those types of inhibitors because you're trying to protect from all 3 forms of losses. So a product like Super U or Tribune are going to be great additions to be able to use those. So there's a lot to go through, but you can definitely go to our website, tkachykagronomicservices.ca, and you can get all that information.
I'm Lyndsey Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lyndsey Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern. Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Thursday, February 27th. It is, of course, the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Corteva. Cross-spectrum herbicides from Corteva, checking all the boxes for cereal growers. Cross-spectrum herbicides deliver grass and broadleaf weed control in a powerful all-in-one solution. Learn more at corteva.ca. All right, joining me now from St. Thomas, Ontario, it's Peter Gredig, the ag nerd himself. How are you, Pete?
I'm good, Lyndsey. It's good to be chatting with you after a long time. Yeah, good to hear your voice.
It has been far too long since we have chatted. But glad to see, of course, you're still hard at it at St. Thomas. What keeps you busy this week at the farm?
Well, we're just machinery through the shop, one piece at a time, and we're getting close, start to get a little excited. The sun is a little stronger, and we had a lot of snow, but we lost a lot of it in the last week, so you can see the grass, you can see the wheat, so it's stimulating, right? We want to get ready to go.
So, Pete, that's nice and all, but I did not get that much warm weather, and so I still have lots of snow. So,
Well, you can keep it.
Gee, thanks. We're actually getting more as we speak and through the weekend, so that's great. But it does, of course, there is that little, the sun's a little stronger, a little more pep in our step. Anything different on the farm this spring? Will there be any big changes that you're preparing for?
Not so much. Staying the course. We're constantly looking at different tillage options. We're no-tilling, our wheat and our soybeans. And we're, a little bit concerned about, we're growing these big corn crops and we just have so much corn residue. Mm-hmm. And we've been, getting by no-tilling between the rows, but I think the writing is on the wall that we may have to consider some kind of residue management in the spring. So, it's the eternal quest of looking at, is that speed disc? Is it vertical tillage? Is it something else? Which make and model? So I'm not sure we're making a decision for this spring, but I think our eyes are open and we're going to be looking at everything that's kind of all the options.
So when you have to run through that and try and make those decisions, obviously cost is a factor, size, etc., but what are you trying to accomplish that works its way into that equation?
Well, I think we're just trying to eliminate some of the, just mitigate some of the factors with straight full-on no-till into corn stalks. Like when if you're lucky enough to have a really good corn crop, 220 or 230 or better, and just so much corn stalks, I think we're just a little bit vulnerable to a really cool spring. Last year was a good example. We just struggled with too much moisture, and slugs turned out to be a really big problem in our soybeans. And so, we're watching neighbors that are knocking those corn stalks down with some form of, really light tillage, just to sort of take that variable out of the equation. Mm-hmm. So, it's not a dramatic shift, but, looking for a machine that can do multiple things, for the acres we run, we kind of have to try and keep those equipment costs down. So it's a watch and learn kind of spring for us, I think.
Mm-hmm. How bad are slugs? It sounds like last year was terrible for them.
It was terrible. I think I've been no-tilling probably 35 years, and every year there is a few days where you're kind of, you're worried about the slugs. Generally, your beans grow right past them, and a week later you're not even worried about it. They have their moment in the sun, and then it's, yesterday's news. This past year, we were still worried about slugs. Late July, it just went on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
The residue never dried out. They never stopped feeding, and so we paid. It was probably the worst slug year that I've seen. So, classic. We managed last year's problem.
Right.
Well, maybe we may never see it again, but it was definitely a thing. So it's just another small factor that's making us think maybe we've got to manage this residue a little better.
Yeah. One of the fascinating things I learned about slugs, they are mollusks. They are not insects.
No, mollusk, kind of like a snail without a shell.
Yeah, that's right. They're homeless snails.
Basically.
That's what they are.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Fascinating though. But anyway, okay. So although good point about managing last year's problem, because let's hope that they're not as big of an issue this year, but you don't know that. And so when you have kind of a disaster of an issue, you do try to figure out how do we prevent it again, but maybe this year won't be a huge slug year. Maybe.
Well, hopefully not. I doubt that it will be. Although the odds would be against it being as significant again, because it just, we just haven't seen that before, but it's still something to bear in mind. There was a really good session at Southwest Ag Conference this year. I'm going to forget his name. The gentleman was from the States, and he was talking about, managing soybeans in those really cool, wet springs and clay soil, and potentially, and I say, it's just, there's a chance that maybe sulfur might be something that we could consider on really early soybeans that are suffering. He seems to be getting a response. PJ is not on board. We can't seem to get that response here. But I mean, there's other ways to manage some of these things, potentially other than another tillage tool. So that's another thing we may do a small trial this year with some sulfur and see if it makes any kind of a difference.
Mm-hmm. It does seem to be one of those, like on certain soils, seems to get a response, but I guess it also depends on like what your problem is, like what problem you're trying to solve. So yeah.
Generally, I think the best cure for slugs is just really good, fast, aggressive growth of your crop. Yeah. So if there's a way to, get around that 10 days where they're just struggling, they're yellow and just not getting any nodulation or nitrogen cooking. So, if it helps them get through those hard times, then it's something I think we need to consider.
Yeah. Okay. Now, so you mentioned some learning happening this year, and that's an every year thing. So you mentioned the sulfur. What else piqued your interest this year as far as the wintertime learning sessions?
Well, I guess fertility is just ongoing. It seems like we're all learning on the fly with it. It just continues to evolve. But I just, anything that I can learn on that front, I'm keen to sort of absorb it and see how it plugs into my system. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, I think that that tillage issue is sort of the one that's been dominating.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, my question of the week. I mean, it's a pretty softball one, but February is my least favorite month. Maybe you know this about me, Peter, but especially since moving to Ottawa, it's gray, it's snowy. And it may be the shortest month, but it is the longest month. And so I am very pleased that it will be March very soon. And so my question this week is, what are you most looking forward to in March?
Oh, it's just getting rolling. Like in March, we, when the conditions are right, we apply our red clover seed on our wheat. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you do that, it begins. That's the beginning of the season. So it's on. And, just being able to get out of the shop and use the stuff you've been working on all winter. So just getting out and doing it.
Yep. I like it. It gives me hope, Peter. It gives me hope.
Yeah, hang in there. It's going to be all right.
It really is. It's snowing again today. Okay. It's been a lot. Okay. No, that's great. All right, Peter, let's leave it there. It is lovely to hear your voice. Glad things are going well in St. Thomas. And I hope it is a year of no slugs. Let's hope.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yep. Fingers crossed.
Okay. All right. We'll be back with more RealAg Radio and the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Corteva Crop Protection right after this.
Every farmer defines success differently, and every farm has its own unique challenges. Corteva Biologicals is partnering with Canadian farmers for their success, offering unique solutions that improve and protect crops from start to finish, based on each field's needs. Using proven predictable solutions across all crop stages, Corteva Biologicals helps build healthy, productive, and profitable farms. Corteva Biologicals, we're growing together. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com, the Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada.
Every year, humic loss makes it harder for crops to absorb applied nutrients. Resurge from Helena is a low-dust granule that delivers humic compounds to improve nutrient uptake and plant growth. The Resurge granule's superior hardness and uniformity withstands pneumatic applications, allowing for even distribution in your fertilizer and across the acre. Energize your soil and elevate your crops. Contact your Helena representative to learn more. Always follow label instructions and check registration status before use.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. It is, of course, the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Corteva. And on with me now from Neerlandia, Alberta, it's Shane Strydhorst. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing, Lyndsey?
I'm doing well. How are things in your neck of the woods?
Good. Yeah, keeping busy. I'm just getting the truck and trailer checked over and warmed up to take some canola to the crusher again today.
Mm. Has that been a regular thing for the past little while, or is this kind of new?
No, we've been actually moving out quite a bit of grain the last couple of weeks, taking advantage of a little rally in the markets. And, everybody's a little bit unsettled about the talk of tariffs. So kind of just feel a bit more comfortable getting a bit more grain out. And, then we'll see what happens in the spring and in the summer.
Mm-hmm. What is that talk kind of like as far as, coffee shop, grain elevator, everybody pretty nervous, or what are the conversations?
Yeah, I guess everybody's nervous. It's nobody really likes uncertainty, and we just really don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to happen, if it's going to be long term or not. But it looks like it could be cause some difficulty for us. Markets could soften a bit, and looking at things like parts and fertilizer and inputs coming this way. If there's tariffs going both ways, it could be an expensive growing season this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just the uncertainty in general, it does make it difficult to know, or it's an added layer of, making those decisions. Do you make some decisions sooner? Do you wait on some things? And I don't know, we don't seem to be able to get a straight answer out of what will happen in the next week, let alone the next couple months. So stressful for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, of course, weather's always an uncertainty too. So like you say, just another layer to add on to the mix.
Mm-hmm. Now, we are, of course, rounding out February, which makes me happy, but still a ways before things are rolling in the field. But what does the year look like ahead for you? Any big changes planned, or any new things added to the lineup?
Nothing too crazy. The crop rotation, we're more or less sticking with what we've been doing with spring wheat, barley, canola, and faba beans. It's sort of a diverse mix, which spreads out our risk a little bit, whether it's weather risk or marketing risk. So we'll stick to that plan. And I guess one new thing is we're setting up an applicator on the heavy harrow this year to do some more granular herbicides. In the last couple of years, we've been kind of going back to some of those older chemistries, and I've got tired of asking a neighbor to custom apply for me all the time. So we're going to do it ourselves this year.
Mm-hmm. And what weed or weeds? I think I know, but I'm going to ask, which ones are you targeting that have been such an issue?
Well, I mean, there's always an assortment of weeds. Wild oats is top of mind. I think we used to use a lot of Avedex and then got away from it for a long time and kind of leaned on those group 1s and 2s. And just have to spread things out a little bit to try lots of little hammers. And so that's one. And another one we're using an older chemistry is Edge on our pulses, of course. Things like chickweed and other pesky broadleaf weeds are becoming an issue. So we're going to, change things up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Now, so wild oats is one of those ones, certainly, when it comes to herbicide resistance that we definitely worry about. Kochia, of course, the other big one. How does faba beans work into the rotation as far as, obviously great for fixing nitrogen, awesome if you got a market for them. Does it increase the complexity of your weed control, or does it actually help?
I guess it's one of those things where you have to, of course, plan ahead. You want to make sure you're careful with what herbicide you applied in your crop the year before, and you want to have as clean of a field as possible. Try to keep Canada thistle down the year before you go into faba beans. And it's, maybe one of those things where we're spreading out our risk and stuff with diseases. I mean, I'm close to Neerlandia, Westlock, Barhead area. There's lots of clubroot around, so we're trying to stretch our canola rotations out a little bit. And, as you mentioned, the nitrogen fixation is fantastic. It all plays into the crop rotation, and we're really kind of excited when we put our hard red spring wheat in after a faba bean crop, because we always see a good surge in protein in that wheat crop. And usually we can cut back our nitrogen fertilizer in that wheat crop just a little bit too, and still get the yield and higher protein. Yeah,
it does work well, doesn't it? Now, where do those faba beans go?
Kind of a mixed bag. Quite often they go into feed markets locally across Western Canada. Some years we have access to markets in Egypt. And I'm not going to lie, this winter's been a little bit tricky. Haven't had as many good marketing opportunities. And I think a lot of people in my area especially tried faba beans for the first time, or tried them again for the first time, and had really good success. So we're we're kind of filling up our local feed markets a little quicker than some years, but I'm confident we'll move them and look forward to marketing opportunities going into the next crop year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're a cool crop, that's for sure. But I also know they're, as you mentioned, can be a bit more of a challenge to find homes for if you haven't lined that up ahead of time. So now on the barley side, is that for feed, or do you ever make malt where you are?
We've had good success with malt varieties in the past, but the last few years, a number of the newer feed varieties have taken over in the area. They're a nice short straw and exceptional yield potential with some of the varieties like Esma and Oriana and Kelly's, one we tried last year and had great success with. So looking more at the feed market, lots of bushels, of course, and just a little easier harvesting when you got a short standing barley crop versus a taller lodged crop like we quite often experienced with some of the malt varieties in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always a concern for sure. Now I'm asking everyone as we round out February, and I am sure glad to see the back end of it, what you're looking forward to most in March.
Oh, I'm looking forward to continued melting. We've had quite a yo-yo winter where I'm from. It seems like a couple of days of minus 30, 35, and then it'll warm up to be plus 5 for a few days, and never really a happy medium. So it's been kind of tricky when you're trying to find your spots to do a little cross-country or downhill skiing or something. It's either too cold or too warm, it seems. But we're on a nice warm run now. I'd like to see just a slow, gradual melt going into spring so we don't have a bunch of runoff. So that's what I'm looking forward to in March.
Mm-hmm. Same here. Now, I will say, you have had quite a cold winter, have you not?
Yeah, the last couple of weeks are, pretty close to mind in our memories here. We've had a couple of weeks where I don't know if it even got above minus 20. And yeah, when you're trying to get out in the grain truck all the time and start augers in the cold, that kind of weather gets old on you quick. So it's nice to see this plus 5 and plus 8 and stuff we've been enjoying the last couple of days.
Yeah, it does get old, doesn't it? I agree.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay, Shane, I appreciate it so much. Good luck with hauling. I hope everything goes well and everybody gets out of your way. And hey, maybe your elevator will have a treat for you. You never know.
Okay.
I always think that they should hand out treats for you guys. I really do. You sometimes wait in line.
Well, they'll have donuts or something if there's a long lineup once in a while.
Yeah. I'm putting it out there for all the elevator companies. Treat your farmers well. All right. Okay, Shane, thank you so much for joining me here on the Farmer Rapid Fire. Take care.
Great. Thanks, Lyndsey.
All right. We'll be back with more RealAg Radio and the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Corteva, right after this.
Growing corn? With Envita, you can cut your nitrogen and maintain yield, or maintain nitrogen and increase yield. Envita takes nitrogen from the air and turns it into nitrogen for your corn. It provides a right place, right time source of nitrogen to maximize your yield. Farmers who use Envita see healthier plants, bigger cobs, and less tipback. Envita is guaranteed to add more bushels to every treated acre. Start growing with Envita. Visit azotic.com to learn more. That's azotic.com.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
I'm Lyndsey Smith with RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. It is Thursday. It is the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Corteva. And joining me today out of Sundown, Manitoba, it's Randy Tkachyk. Randy, how are you?
Doing really good with this warm weather that has settled in here. Looks like we got a few more days of it, and other than what we had last week with the negative 30 temperatures.
Yeah, no thanks. It's nice when it improves, doesn't it? Now, what part of Manitoba is Sundown, Manitoba?
Southeast. We're about an hour southeast of Steinbach, okay, and an hour west. An hour east of the Red River.
Okay.
Along the U.S. border.
Yes, you would be very close to our American friends, although maybe we're not friends right now. We'll leave that conversation for another day. But what keeps you busy in Sundown, Manitoba?
Right now, well, it's I'm preparing to do some pasture planning. I want to get one of our quarter sections. I want to do a spoke system and do some rotational grazing in there. So what I'm doing is setting up a watering system, and also I want to put an underground line in there from about a mile away from our water source there, so that we have a better opportunity to manage our grass. So it's just in the planning stage right now. Hopefully that in 3 months we can start planting fence posts and get that ready for the season.
Mm-hmm. So now, how many years have you been rotationally grazing or managed grazing your farm?
Been doing that for about 20 years, and seen quite a bit of the benefits of we can increase our herd as well. Not with my own cattle, but also with other farmers' cattle as well. So, and that's the other thing that all the cattle have been booked for this coming season as well. So their pastures are filled up.
Well, that's good. It's a good thing to have. Let's have everybody eating that grass. No one likes seeing grass go to waste.
No, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Now, so what then, in 20 years, you mentioned you're planning to set up a spoke system. How many different systems have you tried? Are you always trying something new?
Well, it's, just with the experience that, this particular quarter, it's got, we kind of followed of where the previous owner, they had some fields there that, we just fenced those off. So we have done that in the last 5 years, but now to be a little bit more efficient, we're going to put the water on a little bit of a ridge so that we don't have any issues. In case the water spills over, that water, the cows won't hurt the ground there, and I just find if we do leave, maybe a couple of weeks during the summertime, I can have somebody come in there and just easily open a gate, say, hey, they need to go into pen pasture A. This date they go into pasture B, and so on. It's and I notice that we can also extend our grazing season right up until snowfall too.
Yep, absolutely. Now, I'm going to guess it's similar to where I am, and I'm from Manitoba originally. That early spring flush of vegetation is always one of those ones. It's great, but sometimes that you want to make the most of it and not let it get away on you. How do you manage for all the early growth?
Well, that was interesting because I had a conversation about that last night. In middle of June to beginning of July. I'd like to have everything grazed by the first week of July, but it's just you don't have enough cattle for that. Have to take machinery in there and cut it and bale it, and then we can use that for our own herd here on the farm. But then sometimes if you can't get into that rocky area, I'll take a portable wire and we'll tighten up the pasture so at least we get some trampling that we can come back in 35 to 40 days. At least we've got some new grass coming into ready for grazing end of August into September.
Mm-hmm. It is sort of that interesting time of you want it to regrow, but you got to make sure you get across it quick. Equipment definitely comes in handy. That's for sure, to be able to manage grass.
It's just another management tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, when it comes to the cattle, as you said, you've got some of your own, some from surrounding farmers as well. What do you run for breeds? Do you have a particular favorite, or is it just what works on your farm?
Well, we're crossed between an Angus and Simmental here. I do like the little smaller framed animals because we also do direct marketing as well, and and trying to feed the consumer's needs is having a smaller carcass is a little bit more affordable to the consumers as well, and the freezer space is not available for people that are in the city as well. So that's it's been a learning curve with that, and realizing that there's 3-car garages, but they only have a small freezer to put in that 3-car garage.
It is true, and cows are big. There's a lot of meat there if you're going to order a quarter or a half.
Yeah, it's also acknowledging the customer as well. It's because we sell on the carcasses, and I had to explain, and I learned that is if it's a 300-pound carcass, you're not getting 300 pounds.
That's right.
In there. So it's
Yeah, that it is. There is a bit of education that happens back and forth, right? On what does your customer want, but they also have to learn what it's like to order a quarter or a half. It's always a bit of a conversation on how it all works.
Yeah, and I enjoy teaching others, and it gives me the opportunity to ease myself to learn too.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Now, certainly, as you mentioned, perhaps a bit of a break in the weather, improving a little bit. When do you typically have calves on the ground?
Calves will start end of April into May. We don't bring anything indoors. The only time the cattle go through our corral system is when we vaccinate or preg check.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So try and time it for the grass then, but a little sooner.
And also, I don't want to work that hard either. I want the cows to do the work, and it's a lot easier on my mind and my body.
Yep. Absolutely, it is. It is quite remarkable, Livestock can have their young on their own. It's a little known fact.
It's interesting because, and that was the other thing we had a conversation about. It says, let's look at the wild animals in our area, like the white-tailed deer. It's you don't see none of them having, or that I know of, having them in the snow. And why aren't we just following nature here a bit? It's just easier on whoever's managing those cattle.
Mm-hmm. Well, I raise sheep, and a wise person once said that the barn was not for the sheep; it was for the farmer, and I think that might be true. So we lamb in May and let them do their job, and I for one am glad not to have to deal with cold babies because they sure get chilly in a hurry. So it's quite nice.
That is a lot of work.
Yeah, that absolutely. All right. And so certainly, the next few weeks will be busy getting ready for your season, for calving and planning out your season. My question this week is, what are you most looking forward to in March?
In March?
Yes.
What I'm looking forward to is on the farm here is for the snow to disappear and see some of the grass starting to grow. That's what I'm hoping for. But there's also a little bit of a gloom as well. I kind of wish that the terrorists were in now, so we know exactly what we're dealing with. Because it's like this storm that's coming in. They say the storm's coming, but we don't know how this is going to affect us. So that's just on the back of my mind, and I might be a little bit of the oddball. If we know what we're dealing with, then we know how to move forward.
That's right. Yeah, the unknown, I think I'm with you, Randy. I think the unknown is almost worse. As bad as it may be to have the tariffs in place, not knowing what the tariffs may be or how long or when they start is almost worse. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. It's not a great time. That's for sure.
It's but I'm looking at it as we have to expect it because but we don't know where if it's actually going to happen. But we'll have to just play it when that storm comes.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Randy, thank you so much for joining me here on the Farmer Rapid Fire.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
All right, and we'll be back with more RealAg Radio and the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Corteva right after this.
Co-op knows your community because we live here too. Our teams are your trusted partners with a range of expertise to help support your entire farm operation. And we're giving back. In the past 5 years, Co-op has invested over $1.1 billion in the prairies through building, upgrading, and expanding local facilities. And we've returned over $1.17 billion to Co-op members in the prairies. Co-op, we're all building something for the future. Here for your farm, here for your family. Learn more at coop.crs/farm.
Before you get back in the field this year, spend some time with the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com. Get all the information you need on hybrid selection, planting depth, crop inputs, and more from a wide range of industry experts. A massive library of video content is available on demand when you need it most. Spend your time outside of the field, inside the classroom, with the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com.
I'm Lyndsey Smith with Real Agriculture and RealAg Radio, and joining me now is Rhett Duke. He's currently in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, but of course covers Saskatchewan for Corteva. How are you, Rhett?
Doing great. How about you, Lyndsey?
Oh, I'm doing well. We're about to say goodbye to February, and that makes my heart sing. It is it's time to move on. Time to get into the exciting stuff of March and the new growing season. Yeah.
The warm-up has been a pleasant treat after a couple of weeks of minus 30, that's for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So this week, of course, lots of learning happening, lots of planning happening. We're going to touch on seed treatments and the importance of treating seed and some of the best management practices around that. So maybe let's touch on the why of seed treatments. What goes into that decision?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's a great question, Lyndsey, and that's something we're definitely talking about with both our retail partners and our farmer customers at this time of the year. For me, I think, when we're kicking off the start of the season and we're planning, to me, all of that yield potential is baked right into that seed before we put it in the ground, right? And I think that early spring season, it represents really the most vulnerable time for your crop before it emerges. Specifically on the cereal acre, any yield potential that's lost at that time of the year, we're not able to get it back, right? So I kind of position it with customers and retailers as kind of being able to control one of the few controllables in a farming operation, and making sure that we're using a good solid fungicide seed treatment, and potentially in conjunction with an insecticide seed treatment can really help protect that initial investment and ensure we're going to hit that targeted yield potential.
Now, when you talk about, the insecticide piece, what are we protecting against? What are our biggest culprits there?
Yeah, so that's a great question. On the cereal acre, I think, a lot of the insects we're going to be looking to protect against are going to be the wireworm type species, cutworm species, but, some other pests that we can run into in cyclical nature, maybe stuff like grasshoppers and, some of those types of things. So, a really good product that we carry at Corteva to manage those insects on the cereal acre would be a product like Lumavia CPL. And that product is fantastic broad spectrum mode of action with a unique group 28 mode of action. Very, very environmentally friendly and human friendly as well. So easy to use and does a great job out there.
These are important things. Now, there are, of course, some things to consider if we're going to treat seed. We need to make sure that we're starting with clean seed. We also want to make sure it's not frozen or super high moisture. So walk us through the things that, if I'm going to decide to have my seed treated, what do I need to know? How do I need to prep?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's a really great question. And, the way I would position this with customers is that we need to do a really, really good job in treating the seeds so that we can see that high level of consistent efficacy within the field. And you hit the nail on the head. Having clean seed before we put it through that treating process is absolutely critical to make sure that we're having uniform distribution of that seed treatment over the seed coat. What happens when we have a lot of dust or chaff or even, say, cereal head-on in that sample before we treat? It essentially means that we're not getting that full dosage rate of the seed treatment on the seed. And then you can start to see some slippage in terms of the pathogens or, maybe even on that insect protection piece where they can kind of sneak through. And, quite frankly, I think a lot of that lack of distribution, it has led today partly to the belief that sometimes seed treatments aren't doing what they're designed to do. So taking the time to do it right during that treating process is absolutely critical.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would happen, let's say, if I put, crop in the bin, a little too high moisture, maybe wintered with too high moisture? How can that mess up the process too?
Yeah, for sure. So that's another common thing that we can see too, especially if we have a really wet fall. Last year wasn't too bad for that, but it is something to be cognizant of because that high moisture seed, it can really increase the level of dust off after we've had that application. And as we're running that treated seed through the air drill, you're going to start to see flaking and dusting off within the tank itself. Some of that may be shot right through the runs and enter into the ground, not on the seed itself. And that is not a good deal. We need that seed treatment adhered. So when that young plant starts to grow, we can actually have translocation of both the fungicide and the insecticide seed treatment to protect the below and, in case of the insecticide, the above ground plant tissue as well.
Mm-hmm. Super important. Did want to touch on, before I let you go, the fungicide piece. Certainly, I think, in cool conditions and wet conditions seems like a no-brainer, but, we don't always have those conditions. So how do we decide on the fungicide piece?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lyndsey. And I think it's really important to recognize that typically we are under, where we think about fungicide seed treatments having the most benefit would be for that cool and wet scenario. In those scenarios, your Pythium species are going to be at the highest risk for infecting that cereal crop. But, there's other conditions that we may run into in the spring that can cause other diseases to rear their head. So another classic example for us in Western Canada, or at least in Southern Saskatchewan, is we're seeding into cool and dry soils. Mm-hmm. And in those conditions, we can see an uptick in pressure for Rhizoctonia species. And, on the flip side too, a lot of the pushback or objections we'll have is, well, it's really warm and it's dry. I don't think I have a risk. And that actually would be indicative of your highest risk for a Fusarium type infection on that cereal crop. So, I think it's important to consider at this time of the year, the end of February, nobody has a crystal ball that's sharp enough to allow them to understand what that spring season is going to be. So using some of these products can really provide peace of mind in terms of getting that cereal stand established, off to the races, nice and vigorously, and let you focus on other stuff because let's be honest, it's a very busy time of the year for everybody.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. All right, Rhett, for those who maybe have some follow-up questions or want to get some seed treatment booked, where can they go for more information?
Yeah, for sure. So our Corteva.ca website does an excellent job of kind of outlining some of the products that we carry, but I'd also encourage anybody listening to this to pick up the horn and call your local Corteva TM or TSA. We would love to have a conversation with you about our products and how they might fit your operation for this growing season.
Perfect. All right, Rhett, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lyndsey. Take care.
Well, that does it for another edition of the Farmer Rapid Fire here on RealAg Radio on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. My thank you to all of the farmers for joining me here on the show, and of course to Rhett for joining me as well. I will be back on tomorrow's show for the issues panel. As always, it has been just a busy week, but a fabulous week, and thank you so much for making us part of your day. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you head on over to realagriculture.com/radio. You can subscribe to the podcast there. You can, of course, check out any past episodes you may have missed. All right. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.